Good day, my Telos podcast friends. This is the Telos podcast by Telos Writer. Welcome to the show today. This is also funded by a Telos worker proposal. Isn't that rad? This show is cool. We've got Justin today, and we're talking about the Rex that's coming for Telos and when it's coming, how much it might be paying, and that was one of the most interesting things that I learned today, so check it out. This is sponsored by Spores, an audio, haptic, and kinetic puzzle box built by Hybrid.Games. Using sound touch in your phone's physical motions, you will learn how to unlock and collect unique digital items on the EOS blockchain. Visit Hybrid.Games to learn more. I'm on the waiting list for the beta for Hybrid.Games, and you can too. It's exciting. That's our sound engineer, Scott, also a computer engineer who's building that. So pretty rad. I'm looking forward to that. So without further ado, we have Justin, the legend himself from Infinitybloc, telling us what's really going on Telos.
You're here because you know something. What you know you can't explain.
The Telos Podcast.
You stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Hey, good to see you today, Justin. Welcome to the Telos Podcast. How you doing today?
Yeah, pretty sweet, man. Pretty sweet. Pretty busy. Thanks for having me on the show. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. It's good to see you. Good to see you again, man. We've done a lot of interesting projects together. It's rad to catch up on this podcast too. So what do you think is most interesting going on in Telos right now?
It's really, really hard to say, but I mean, there's so many applications that are coming onto the network soon. A lot of them I can't talk about yet, but I think probably the biggest thing has to be the Telos Economic Development Proposal that's up for vote and it's closing this weekend. So obviously what is happening there is we've got this pool of funds that was put aside for the exchanges basically to provide to users who were in the EOS snapshot, but they had their tokens on the exchange at the time of the EOS snapshot. And so we're looking at rediverting those funds at least gradually over time into the Rex pool that's going live quite soon. So 1 million Telos is actually going to be going to the Rex pool. And then I think there's 1 million that's going to be funneled into the foundation to help develop all the marketing and promotion and all that sort of stuff. So what we're going to see is like a huge amount of activity on the Telos network. And it could be, I mean, it's a kind of a risky thing that we're doing because like all this Telos is suddenly going to be liquid. But because we're funneling 1 million Telos into the Rex each month, it's actually going to provide a stake reward to users. So it's going to really reward the active community, those who have control of their Telos accounts, and those who are getting involved in staking their resources to apps. So I think that's going to be really exciting, and there's a lot that we're going to do within the Telos Foundation to really make that go really, really far. And yeah, I think over the next year, we're going to see Telos change quite significantly.
Yeah, that funding is such a stimulus in the beginning of these projects. And I think it was overlooked a little bit on the EOS, on the main chain EOS, without the worker proposal fund. And I was against the worker proposal fund because of this idea of it being a honeypot that's going to draw resources out of the system and go to whales. But seeing how it's working in Telos, it lights a fire under these projects and like kind of gives them some gas to make things happen really quickly. So this podcast is funded by Telos, and as I've learned more about Telos, it's been a rad stimulus for me to come in here and crush some podcasts and learn a bunch about Telos. It's pretty rad, man. So with the Rex starting, that's exciting because I think one of the things that we're learning on the EOS main chain is that people are really interested in dividends. Bottom line, like that's what's hurting the main chain right now, or that's what a lot of the controversies around. Like people are just giving their votes to exchanges because they want that return, they want that dividend. So it's a big motivator. You said that 1 million monthly go to the Rex. Do you have any idea like what dividend percentage that would be for people who are staking? Has there been any numbers run on that?
Yeah, there's some estimates that have been made, and based on the estimated amount of kind of activity, people are talking about numbers around 30%. But the reality is, like day one, when that goes into play, I'm not sure about exactly what date, but when that goes into play, it is going to be like a huge percentage. So that is actually going to draw a ton of people in to unlock, their tokens that they haven't actually accessed yet. And people are just going to pile on that Rex. Like it'll start out as a percentage, like, over 100%, and then it's going to draw down over time based on how many people end up staking. But yeah, it should be a very tidy dividend, definitely. We're thinking 30%, but it could be higher. It could be a bit lower, but either way, it's going to be quite substantial, like a lot more than what you get in your average bank account, that's for sure. I don't know, like 2% or zero usually these days. It's crazy.
Yeah. What do you think? What's the date or the estimated date on Rex being already, and what's the best tool for people to use for the Rex?
I'm actually not up to date with what date that's going to be exactly. I think it's still yet to be confirmed. I'd say maybe a couple of weeks after. It was decided not to kind of go ahead and start testing it until it actually passes. Just because, optically and, at the end of the day, someone with a ton of tokens could come in at any time and change their vote. So we still have to wait. All the work is being done behind the scenes, though, to prepare for it. But it will take a couple of weeks, I think, to get it up and working.
And when does the vote pass or not pass? What's the vote date?
I don't know the exact date, but it's coming up this weekend, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, exciting, man. That's always the thought of dividends. Always gets people paying attention. It's like, okay, time to watch closely for that one, because you definitely want to be staking in the early part of that game. So
totally, man.
And then you mentioned the Telos Economic Development Program and the Telos Foundation. There's 1 million tokens going to that. Is that a one-time million or 1 million a month going to that? Or
That's a million a month. So it's quite a substantial amount, and we've got some pretty big plans to utilize it. We'll be working on the website and kind of the messaging around Telos. It's kind of interesting because Telos is it's obviously a decentralized network. And at the moment, we don't have any clear guides for the community on what's the best way to talk about Telos. What exactly is Telos? Things like that. Like, everyone has their own way of describing it, and they'll always have that right to describe it in their own way. But, we can hire a very competent team that has kind of branding experience, and that's what we're doing. And they can help us and alongside the community form some messaging that's really going to work and really going to create the network effects that are going to make a great blockchain network. So what we want is, going forward, we have a website for the Telos network where new users, new developers, new builders, entrepreneurs, whatever their role in the ecosystem is, we want them to come in, understand really quickly at a glance what Telos is, what it's capable of, how they can get involved, without digging into, really technical documentation. We just want them to be presented with that, like a really good user experience. We want them to be able to flow onto a wallet, be able to create an account and get involved straight away. So that's the future of Telos, and that's what we're going to be spending a lot of that 1 million Telos a month to develop. And I think it's going to really blow people away how easy blockchain can be to both understand and use. And I think we'll see things like the Worker Proposal Fund, have a lot more competition, a lot more variation in the types of people adding to it. Because I've sort of taken the chief product officer role at the foundation. Of course, recently we've employed a CEO, Suvi Rinkin. So she's taken the head honcho role, and basically with my role, I'm guiding that vision of the chain. How does it work as a product? So I'm bringing a lot of these things in and bring a clear vision with feedback from the community along the way. And yeah, as I was saying, we're bringing in a talented branding team. They're going to help out with this. We've got like people like yourself that we also bring into the process to get their feedback, because we really want to create those network effects. And, you know, one day I think we'll see, you know, on the worker proposal fund, we'll see people who are like full-time developers just helping new projects. We'll have full-time marketers who just help market new projects. It's really going to be like a community that is aligned and driven towards the success of every project. And that's what we think is going to get the most effect out of this project.
Yeah, the worker proposal and the Telos Foundation, how people are getting paid to market and work on the chain is cool, and it puts everyone on the same page. And an example is with this podcast. This is done through a worker proposal, but also CJ and they have a marketing worker proposal too. And so I basically, for the Telos podcast, have like access to this cool marketing team that's helping market all of Telos, but also when a podcast comes out, they help distribute it to all these channels. They promote it because we're acting kind of on the same team. And that's a really cool effect that you see with these worker proposals that may be separate, but that have aligned interests and that work together. It's rad to see this develop. I mean, it's something so new, and it's so far it's been going smooth. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out as there's more competition for worker proposals, and you know, what the market decides to do and how that ends up working out. But
oh, totally.
Yeah, right now it seems smooth.
Yeah, it's really important with the worker proposal system, and just generally that we build a really positive culture around kind of, you know, supporting, well, about not being kind of too greedy on things like, you know, putting ridiculous worker proposals in, but also like just putting the network first, you know, because like, I don't know, there's always a risk that someone could build up a ton of tokens and then vote in their own worker proposals. But we need to make people understand that, you know, if you do that, and it would be pretty hard, granted, because, you know, there's a lot of people who would vote against it. But if you do that, you will reduce what we're trying to build here, which is like network effects and trust in the network. We have to make people understand and, you know, hopefully bring on the right kinds of stakeholders that are going to understand this vision, and they're going to support, you know, what Telos is capable of becoming. You know, it's like a company, like, you know, a company with stakeholders that don't have the same vision. You know, some people just want to squeeze every dollar out of, you know, their sales. And, you know, if you don't have everyone on that same vision of growing the network, then, you know, it's just going to fail basically. So it's important that that's why this marketing is going to be so important, is kind of really building a vision that everyone can get behind and support. Because at the moment, like, you compare Telos to something like EOS, you know, you have people from all around the world, and they have very, very different views on where EOS should go. And you see the sorts of problems that creates, you know, stagnation, indecision, just, it's that infighting that we were talking about earlier on Twitter. Like, it's very hard to move forward when you have such differing opinions on the vision for the chain and where it's going to go.
Yeah. What do you think about maybe the Telos Foundation or an entity continuing to control, let's say 51% of the chain, or effectively enough to make sure that a whale can't just come in and make big decisions. There's a philosophical thing for a lot of crypto people. It's like, we don't want someone controlling, we don't want an entity that's controlling this. But it almost, if it's driven by incentives and money, and if a whale can come in and vote in their own worker proposals and hurt the ecosystem, it seems like it's almost better to have a collective of people, like board members almost, that maintain control of the chain. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I mean, to your first point around, like, you could technically have, someone owning more than 51%, an entity, and you could do that for a certain amount of time. So then you could kind of get the ball rolling, get the network rolling in the direction that you see it going in, and then opening it up and then giving out more and more stake in the network once it's already rolling. That's kind of an interesting concept, and I'm open to how that could play out. Of course, on Telos, it's not like that, because the Telos Foundation, although we can help create that vision, we serve at the behest of the token holders. We can be removed at any given time, and that's the power of Telos. You can employ leadership, but you can also remove it if the token holders don't agree with it. But yeah, there's definitely different power structures that could be utilized to benefit, like having board members that control everything, and whether they're elected, I'm not sure. It's very interesting, and there's no right or wrong way. It's just, the most important thing to me in terms of my values is that we have these options of different networks and chains, because you need that free market competition. You need those networks deriving use cases that they're structured advantageously for. I think it just achieves the best result having so much competition, I think.
Yeah, the competition definitely forces chains to kind of set themselves apart and try to do what's best long term for the chain. It's just been, we talk about this vision of Telos and everything, how it's working right now is it's working well. What happened with the EOS chain, it was working well until it got big enough, until whales kind of cartelized enough to kind of push it the way they wanted. And so, like, the vision in the beginning will take chains a long way, but eventually it really comes down to the economic incentives and how those are set up. I mean, that's at least now. It's like hard to get all these people on the same page of, like, this is the North Star of this chain, because most people end up acting in their own best interest over time. It just kind of goes that way. So, it's interesting to see how Telos is trying to combat that and coming at it with these new governance models.
That's a very interesting point, and it's something that I think about a lot. Like, what if someone comes in and tries to kind of bring Telos down the same path that EOS is going down, basically? Not that it's a bad path, but Telos is not going to succeed trying to be exactly like EOS.
Mm-hmm.
EOS has become this sort of libertarian chain with, like, almost zero taxes, well, not zero taxes, but zero inflation, driving towards zero, where you're not paying for anything, which is great. It's, like, very cheap and efficient, but it comes with downsides. Like, you're never going to have all these support people in terms of worker proposals helping projects build. So that's a disadvantage, of course. But going back to how do we defend against this and defend the vision, we've just got to communicate effectively. We've got to sell as a community a vision that everyone can jump on board. It's like a company. The CEO needs to sell a strong vision, whether their vision is growth or just increasing margins, or depending on type of business it is, they can really drive a vision successfully if they do it well. But also, we'll never get into that situation on Telos, or hopefully anyway, where puppets can take over, 21 spots, like the top 21 active producer roles. The reason that will be hard is because on Telos, we have like very strong compliance. You need to sort of prove that you're an independent BP. You need to run on testnet. There's a lot of checks and balances, and, the block producers are proven that they can and will enforce, the strong culture and the rules and regulations of being a block producer. So that's going to help a lot. We've seen it disincentivize any puppets coming on. The ones that have come on, they've been kicked. We can continue to iterate and improve on that sort of thing. Obviously, what we have now isn't perfect, but as people will try and find new ways to game the system, we will be improving alongside that.
You know what it reminds me of is the difference between Steemit and Voice, just on a higher level. But Steemit was this kind of, we put this stuff in place and now let's see what happens. And, all the witnesses were kind of taking care of the chain, but, the bots came in and there wasn't a entity that was taking the lead and iterating quickly. And that's kind of one of the promises for Voice from Block One, is that Voice is going to be driven by basically some leadership, and it will be iterated quickly, and we're going to stay ahead of, as people game the system, we're going to try to keep up with that, if not stay ahead of it. And it sounds like, just on a high level, that's kind of what Telos is saying too, is that it's not perfect. People are going to game it, but we're here to change it and fix it as quickly as possible as people try to kind of attack the system. So.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I think Voice is going to do it successfully, but it's unfortunate that is via a centralized model of Block One always being in charge. Mm-hmm. The good thing about Telos is that, the foundation could be just taken down completely if everyone disagrees with it. People don't necessarily need to listen to us. They can make their own websites and their own promotional material. It's like leadership by leading and not by authority, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And I think that that's one of the common misconceptions about leadership, or about the difference between like corporations that are, because they control everything, kind of doing what they want. And so people say, oh, we don't want these people leading us. It's not that they don't want someone leading them. It's not that having leaders isn't natural. It's that leaders that are there through kind of a meritocracy, are there because people want to be following them, are really important, as opposed to leaders that are just in place when people don't want to be following them. That makes it rougher. So yeah, it's cool to see. I support what the Telos Foundation's been up to lately, and it's been cool to kind of watch it develop.
Definitely.
So let's shift out of governance a little bit. I mean, we could talk about governance the whole time, I'm sure, but there's some interesting projects that are going on that have been built on Telos. One of the things, well, go ahead. What's your favorite thing that's going on as a project or a dApp on Telos right now?
Yeah, it's really hard. I mean, there's so many, and they're so different in what they're providing. But obviously, Drakos Keep is very, very exciting. I think like the quality of that game is probably as high, or if not higher, than what I've seen on any blockchain network. Just in terms of like the design of the characters, and just the thought that's gone into it. And obviously the Good Block team, they have a background that includes games like Halo and Pokemon, Might and Magic. I forgot what that game is, but they have like a pretty amazing background. And so I think Drakos Keep is going to deliver the goods, and that's really going to excite people on Telos. What else is there? I really like Proxybots is obviously a really good game. Just very inventive, being able to drive kind of a little bot around a room, scan VR codes. Yeah, it's just really cool. We've got a crowdfunding application coming up on Telos. That's going to be really exciting. There's just so much coming that I think people are going to get excited about.
Can you talk about the gameplay, and is there rewards in Drakos Keep?
I don't know a ton about it, other than kind of I was browsing through the website the other day. But yeah, I've kind of forgotten exactly how it works, but the mechanics were they were on another level to say like crypto kitties and that type of thing. Mm-hmm. But it's that sort of game where you're attending to kind of your characters and you're developing them. I believe you're fighting them against each other. But it's just like another iteration on what we've seen. And on that note, Koloblock obviously released yesterday, and alongside the simple goods standard and the simple market. And yeah, that's really cool. Like just how seamless it is interacting with Koloblock as opposed to a game like CryptoKitties. Just the speed of EOS.io and usability just improves the experience substantially. And they've got some exciting plans that the Telos Foundation will be helping them with in terms of developing their game.
Cool. And Koloblock is by Crypto Lions, is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's cool to see them. They're all over the place. They do a lot of stuff. I think they also are doing a simple market on for NFTs on Telos. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Okay. That's up at the moment. So like the Koloblock game was sort of like a proof of concept. It shows, what you can do with this NFT marketplace. But they're building it into a fully fledged game, which is really cool. At the moment, you can breed them together and create all sorts of different Koloblock offspring, which is kind of fun.
That is cool. I saw on your Twitter, I think that you made a couple Koloblocks. So that's cool. Yeah, the digital collectible marketplace it's so new. I mean, it's so like, it's hard to even conceptualize how big of a shift that'll be just for everything that we do digitally. It's so new right now, but it's killer to see these very first inroads,
Oh, totally.
So as far as what's going on with Infinitybloc specifically, how long you guys have been producing on Telos since the very beginning, I think, and you didn't even produce on the mainnet, or did you launch on the mainnet later, or how'd that?
We launched on the EOS mainnet after Telos.
Okay.
So Telos was our first kind of major project. We were part of the Telos launch group, so we helped kind of develop the ecosystem. Jerry was he's kind of our sysadmin, head of infrastructure. He was really one of the leaders from like the block production team with testing and getting the network up. And I was kind of leading on kind of building relationships with dApps and a bunch of other business development for Telos. So yeah, we were part of that launch group. It was really kind of exciting to get that network up, and it's been really interesting seeing how it's developed. But yeah, now we're on a lot of chains now. We're on Boss, we're on Meet One, we recently launched on Wax, we're on OrChain. We're on every chain basically. Mm-hmm. It's kind of crazy. We're very, very supportive of all the experimentation that's happening on EOS.io. And we just want to see more and more of it. So as long as we can afford to put up servers, we will, to support these new networks.
Cool. What do you like about the Wax chain?
I think it's interesting to see a chain focus, like really hone in on one specific use case, which is obviously gaming and NFTs and that type of thing. They've managed to get a lot of traction in terms of, well, they've got I think it's Opskin store. They've got a huge community. We're just really impressed by the way that they're building a community. We're really impressed by the potential to hone in on one use case, and we're interested in seeing how that goes. Yeah, how about you guys? Are you guys joining or?
Yeah, we're EOS San Francisco has been chatting about it lately for sure. What we like about it is that, like you're saying, it's honed in. It's specific to this gaming market, and for a long time, I mean, we've been talking about one of the most probable mass adoption inroads for EOS.io is through gaming. You know, it's just going to take like some big hits in the gaming space, and it's all of a sudden you have a mass adopted chain. Whether people know they're using EOS.io or not doesn't matter that much. So really like the way that that Wax is approaching, especially since they've had they had a fully functional, profitable, multi-million-dollar business prior to this blockchain. And so they're kind of incorporating blockchain with something that's already proven. So yeah, I like Wax, I like that. And also the simplicity of users just staking and earning rewards. It's the same way that Telos is going to be offering like some decent rewards for staking. I think that we've seen that people are really motivated by dividends and what they can earn with their tokens, and people really like that idea. So, I like to see that kind of playing out on Wax also. So yeah, I think Wax is a cool, and also thinking about a bigger picture, like you said about the niche. It seems that over time, as all this plays out, that blockchains are going to be very niche. Each industry or maybe separate companies will have their own dedicated blockchain. So yeah,
or even just like your belief systems. How whether you think there should be like arbitration on chain, that type of thing. It's a lot of it's that, and like if you're like me and you don't have any set belief systems, like maybe some applications you want to launch on Telos and some applications you want to launch on EOS, depending on whether you want kind of different governance aspects. It's really interesting. How that comes about. I've been thinking about it today, and it's sort of like choosing what community like you want to build your house in, or you want to move to. Like every community has their own kind of council, which is sort of like a Telos Foundation, which, the council usually gets elected, just like with the foundation. And kind of you choose where you live based on so many different variables. It could be like the restaurants that are nearby. It could be just like some of the services that come, like, I don't know, the bin days and how that works, who your neighbors are. It's just like all these sorts of little things that make it a nice place to live. And, you might want to live in multiple different places. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, and there's also going to be these resources like development expertise, and the chain over time is going to govern itself to make decisions so for Wax, for example, like I'm sure that a lot of their governance and the way that they make decisions is going to be catered to video games or to and to the gaming industry. Whereas, so it's like, oh, I'm doing a game. They're kind of tweaking things that are going down this road. I'm going there. Telos, I know that Telos is interested in enterprise and is approaching the enterprises and is trying to be kind of in some ways like IBM for enterprise for blockchain. So and they're targeting these different enterprise companies. I think they even have something called the Telos Enterprise team. Shoot, I don't remember what it was.
The Telos Network Services?
Yeah, Telos and TNS. Yeah. No, TBS. TBS. Is it TBS?
TBS maybe, yeah. Something like that.
But yeah, so Telos is kind of going down that road. And then they attracted Edna recently, which Edna, because of the IPFS, is coming on to Telos. So, so yeah, I think you're right on with that. It's there's going to be all these people decide what city they want to move into, what town they want to move into, what community is going to support them the right way.
Yeah, it's super interesting. Like you mentioned, Edna, like they're going to be on both EOS, Telos, and Warbly. Like being part of 3 communities, that's kind of cool. I think like it's like, for me, like I often, obviously I live in Oakland, but often I work in San Francisco. So it's like nothing wrong with that, right? Like you have a business district and you have like a residential district. Like it's like how you were referring to kind of, different niches for different networks.
Yeah, that's an interesting call too. Like this idea of even being able to kind of dip into a few communities for different aspects of your project. So like Edna, for example, maybe they do their, kind of their payments or their whatever financial stuff they have, they kind of do through Warbly, and then their IPFS stuff on Telos. And so when inter-blockchain communication is commonplace, and it doesn't matter what chain you're using, and these tokens can kind of transfer between, people should be able to kind of pick and choose a la carte what blockchains they want to use to fit their basket of needs. Oh,
totally. I mean, how awesome would it be if you could log into an app with any blockchain, or, at least the most popular ones, like, you could log in with your Ethereum key or sign at least, or EOS or Telos or Warbly or, IOTA, any of them. Like, I think that's kind of the future. I saw there's a game 0x Races or something, and they basically have it so you can log into this racing game and buy NFTs, but with either Tron, EOS, or Ethereum. So that's really cool. I'm interested to see how that plays out. I don't know if it was just like a scam or an actual legit game, but it looked really, really cool.
Very cool. Yeah, and 0x, so is the NFT a Ethereum NFT?
I think so. It's got something to do with trading and NFTs. I'm not sure. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. There's another interesting use for EOS.io is this idea that temporary scaling for Ethereum or Bitcoin on EOS.io software would be an interesting second layer for one of them.
Yeah, that was interesting. I saw Dan's comment. I definitely agree. So it sounds like they're considering using Bitcoin Cash to scale Ethereum, which is something I would have thought of, because I always thought Ethereum would be more scalable than like a first generation blockchain. That's incredibly interesting. But yeah, I think like an EOS.io chain like Telos or EOS would probably be perfect for that role. I don't know why they don't consider it.
Yeah, I mean, they may. Who knows? They may behind closed doors. But it's hard. It's hard to say. I'm not familiar enough. I'm not enough of an engineer to really have a real intelligent conversation on this. So I'm probably getting in a little over my head. But
me too.
But outside of EOS.io and DPoS, like I'm so interested in the crypto community and just blockchain in general. I'm open to Ethereum, whatever ways they end up scaling, Bitcoin. What do you think? What's your favorite chain outside, let's say, of DPoS? What's your favorite project or something you're interested in?
It's interesting. I was always, I used to not like chains outside of DPoS. Like I really like Stellar, but it's not DPoS. It's got a different sort of consensus model. But I used to only like these fast utility-based chains like Stellar, EOS, Telos, etc. But over the last year, I've started to delve into those other communities like Bitcoin, Ethereum, and really start to appreciate some of the positives of those networks. Like, I was always against Bitcoin because like it chews through gargantuan amounts of energy and destroys trees and the world, etc. I'm exaggerating a bit, but I didn't like that environmental impact side of it. I have come to appreciate it though, because I think it's really good at being a store of value because it costs so much to produce a Bitcoin, and the way the tokenomics works, it does actually become a very safe asset to go into over time, especially BTC because it's the original. I'm not so sure about those other chains like Bitcoin Cash, but I think like Bitcoin being the original, I think it will continue to rise. I don't think it will rise as much as other networks. I mean, like, because to me, it's like comparing gold to, corporate entities, businesses, startups. Yeah. You get much more growth out of like the next Airbnb than you will ever get out of gold. And when you really like tally up all the assets in the world, most of the assets are kind of in real estate and companies. And, I don't know what the percentage is for gold, but it's like, I don't know, maybe 5% or less. It's not a huge amount of money. There's more money going towards kind of real estate and stocks, basically. Mm-hmm. And I expect that to continue, only with a more liquid cryptographic system.
Yeah. And it comes down to like some sort of risk analysis or portfolio management as far as Bitcoin and like you're saying, what to hold. Definitely Bitcoin has the least chance of going to zero. That's what I like about it. It's like,
that's what I like.
Yeah. It's not going to just, it would be it's such a dang near impossible for Bitcoin to go to zero. It seems like a one-way street. Like, everyone would have to get together and be like, yeah, actually everyone was right. Bitcoin's worthless. Fuck it. Let's all sell it to zero. Like, I don't know. So it just seems like out of everything, it's the safest, EOS, Ethereum, which are big ones, Stellar, Ripple, all those something could happen and they could go to zero. The business model could fail. Bitcoin, exactly. There's not really some sort of business model. It's just like, this is just somewhere to keep, this is just your digital gold, So that's something I'm really interested in. The other one that I've been getting more interested in is Monero, because of the, as regulations and things kind of start to clamp down on crypto in general, it just seems like there could be this need for a spot where you can put your money where everyone doesn't need to know it's there. The privacy is one for me that I think is a serious use case. So Monero is interesting to me for that reason.
Yeah, I definitely think there's a lot that can happen in that privacy space. I mean, obviously we do a lot of business on kind of EOS.io chains, and it's completely transparent, and it's like, yeah, maybe I want a bit of privacy. Like, I don't want people to know every single time I play EOS Bet or, how much time I'm spending on all these stupid games. I think privacy is definitely huge. I think we'll see privacy get integrated into the EOS.io chains in some way, shape, or form via like PEOS and Priv EOS. But yeah, it's interesting, these proof of work based privacy coins as well. I think we'll definitely see one or two of those really succeed alongside Bitcoin because they're kind of one of the first kind of thing, as long as they continue to develop. I really like Grin just because I believe it's a lot faster, a lot more scalable. It just seems like a very interesting coin, but there's just, a lot of competition. It's obviously not the first to market. Monero and I think Zcash kind of ahead in that front. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see. It's kind of exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, in the same way that DPoS is going to have, thousands of different chains for all these different applications, just blockchain in general has like bigger things like privacy, store of value, applications, it's just I always try to zoom out on the space a little bit and kind of think big picture about it too. It's a cool spot to be in. So let's get back to Telos a little bit, since this is the Telos podcast. I had dRealms on the list of apps that's on Telos right now. Are you have any familiar with dRealms or Snacks by any chance?
Yeah, dRealms. I guess it was only released 2 days ago by Goodblock. They've released the white paper and the website, and it looks like a really cool NFT marketplace. We're going to have, that's a third big NFT marketplace that we're going to have generally on EOS.io. Actually 4 if you count Wax. It's really interesting to see how that competition will play out, like what's going to be the NFT standard of choice. Unfortunately, as someone who's more product focused and less development focused, I don't understand the intricacies of what makes one of these NFT standards better than the other. But I'm glad to have that competition. I do hope that marketplaces will support a couple of different varieties of these NFTs. But yeah, it sounds like each has different advantages, is going to be better for certain games, certain types of assets than others. What do you think of it?
I think about the bigger picture about this kind of a network effect with these marketplaces, because from the developer standpoint, they have to, they're taking a big risk basically building an NFT standard into their game, because if that standard doesn't succeed, then all of a sudden they have to either rebuild their game or their game kind of falls apart a couple years down the road, which is so. What some developers are doing is not building an NFT standard into their game, just building gameplay and saying we'll get to NFTs someday. And then others are taking risks on it. So it seems like sooner than later we'd start seeing some sort of network effect where, okay, if there's 4 different NFT standards and there's one person on each standard, it's hard to choose. But all of a sudden, if there's 2 on one standard and 1 on the others, then it's like people start flowing into that. And I think that that obviously they'll all go to one place eventually, kind of like how the Steam network for video games, how everyone's there trading skins. It's because everyone's there trading skins. That's why everyone's there trading skins, So I think we'll probably see that with the NFT standard. As far as the differences between them, I know that talking to Simple Assets, their big difference for them with Crypto Lions was the concept of some sort of developers owning the standard. So with things like dGoods and those, there's still like a development team that has access to the core code. So even though everything can be decentralized and everything can be traded in NFTs and on the blockchain, there's still like at the very core level, there is developers that are in control of it. Simple Assets differentiates themselves by trying to build something that there's no developers basically in control of the core, the base layer of it. So that's one of the differences I know.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's again, I a lot of times I talk about stuff and I have no idea what's really going on, because I'm not an engineer. I just listen to engineers and then like repeat what they say. So just keep that in mind.
There's so many sides to the equation to understand. There's the developer intricacies, there's governance, there's all the different types of businesses that can be adapted to blockchain. It's just impossible to understand the whole space completely as one person. So
It is. It's wild, man. It's like so much going on. So what's next? What's most exciting coming up for Infinitybloc in the next, let's say, 3 months or so?
Well, we're working with you guys to develop the next EOS World Expo event. I think obviously we're looking at possibly doing it in China, which would be exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Really bridge that east to west divide that seems to be there in EOS.io. Other than that, we've got a few different projects plodding along, but we're not really ready to officially announce them. We're just looking at things that kind of push the ball along in terms of usability. Maybe like a cross-chain account standard. We're looking at wallets. Not 100% sure if we'll jump in or just assist others to build better wallets. So there's a few different things. We're just continuing to plod along in terms of block production. Hopefully move our rank up on EOS. It's kind of low at the moment. But yeah, for me personally, like a lot of my focus over the next few months is going to be Telos and building that network out with the community. I think we have a real opportunity here. It's such a small network now, but it actually has its advantages. It's easier to change things as a community because there's not as many people to interact with. So we have a real opportunity to kind of place our network for the future. So that's going to be exciting. But yeah, we've also partnered with Strongblock recently. So we're hoping to help build enterprise projects alongside all the teams on the Strongblock initiative. Yeah, we have a lot coming up. There's always too many things to do. I'm sure you know what it's like.
Absolutely. And I'm so excited to be doing the Telos podcast now because, it's this whole new set of things I'm learning about. And that's why I've been doing the podcast in general. It's like, this is my favorite way to learn is just talk with people who know things that I don't, ask them questions. So as we start to wind down here, I'm going to give kind of a bunch of stuff Telos is up to. And then if you have anything that pops up that you'd like to talk about regarding Telos, let me know any final thoughts. And then, we'll kind of start to wrap it up here. But we got Telos has the first digital marketplace, Koloblock's game from Crypto Lions in the simple market, Drakos Keep, dRealms, Snacks, USD Tether for Telos now. Telos, Edna just came on to Telos. Telos, we talked about the blockchain solutions for enterprise. Telos is on blocks.io. Telos Economic Development Program, Rex coming. There's shit is going down on Telos.
I know. There's a lot happening, right?
Yeah, that's the bottom line. So do you have anything to add or any kind of final topics that you want to cover?
Yeah, you mentioned US, like US Tether. I guess you were probably referring to Carbon. I think I'm really excited about that relationship and kind of building a lot of kind of regular everyday services onto Telos because we have that common standard of the US dollar. I'm really excited about that and how that's going to evolve. There's the Vapex exchange. That's really exciting. That's like a decentralized exchange for Telos. And I hope to see that develop into kind of a common order book for the whole Telos network. It's interesting on EOS and other chains, you see all these different decentralized exchanges evolve. I'd actually love to see everyone settle on one order book because that's how you get the maximum amount of liquidity. So yeah, that's a really interesting project. There's a project called Signal X. It's a crowdfunding application. It's coming up on Telos. That's very exciting as well.
You mentioned that, yeah.
Yeah. It's really going to put kind of the ability to utilize Telos governance to the test. I don't know if I'm supposed to talk about this, but I will anyway. It's basically, you have a project that you want to raise money for. They basically break it down into stages of releasing the funds. And at every stage, those who invest in the project can decide to withdraw the rest of the money. So the money gets locked in smart contracts and then released gradually based on performance and hitting targets. So that's kind of helping to reinvent the future of investing. So we're like super excited about how that might play out, how that might link up with carbon as well. So yeah, as kind of the CPO of Telos Foundation, I'm sort of helping to bridge different initiatives and projects together, because they can work quite well together, like things like Carbon USD and SignalX, and also Dmail, of course, is coming very, very soon.
Oh, cool.
So it's going to be interesting seeing how we can weave Dmail into the fabric of Telos. Like, the foundation is considering, sending out updates to the Telos community using Dmail. But also we want to help harbor those relationships between Dmail and, Carbon USD and SignalX, because like if you have an interaction with something like SignalX, why not have like a Dmail spit out showing an invoice or a receipt or some sort of rich text feedback on what that interaction was with that app. I think that's like something really interesting, that you can interact with applications. You don't need to put in an email address or any private information. There's already a way to send back some feedback and, send warnings or just newsletters or anything really.
Yeah. As far as the crowdfunding goes, are people going to be getting equity in the company? Are they going to be getting rewards? Are they supposed to be getting some sort of what's their payback? Or are they getting some sort of product, some early release of a product like they do on Kickstarter? Do you know?
I believe it's they actually get equity, so it'll be a KYC AML compliant product.
Oh wow!
So yeah.
Wow, what a different. That's one of like the big dreams of blockchain too, is to eliminate a lot of the kind of just the all the paperwork. Like imagine you being an angel investor investing in a company and how many like things that how many hoops you have to jump through, whereas with the blockchain, if you kind of automate it, put it online and take a lot of that what would it be, like bureaucracy out of it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. There's so much friction in the world we have now. It's crazy, and we actually at the moment there's a lot of friction in blockchain in interacting with it, but it really has the potential to get ahead of where we're at now and actually be a much more superior frictionless solution, as you're suggesting. Like there's that ability to just go to a website and be logged in one click, because you have keys that are stored on a hardware enclave or, somewhere on the device. I think that is much more frictionless than what we have now, storing all these logins in LastPass or trying to remember them. It's just crazy. It's very insecure as well. So I think the world that we're going to is going to be much more secure, much more convenient, much faster. None of this like 3-day waits when you're sending transactions to someone like who lives in the same house as you. It's just, ridiculous. It's really cool.
Very cool. Well, this is the Telos podcast funded by Telos. So thanks everyone for coming today. Justin, where can people find you on Infinitybloc or any projects you're working on? Where you want them to find you online?
Yeah, you can find me in the EOS project chat, the Telos project chat. I think it's at Hello Telos on Telegram. Any of the sister chains, I'll be there as well. You can find us at Infinitybloc on Twitter, our website, infinitybloc.io. You can also send me an email. It's just my first name and last name at telosfoundation.io. Sorry, it's justin.giudici@telosfoundation.io. Reach out, vote for Infinitybloc, vote for EOS San Francisco, get involved in Telos, whether it's a worker proposal, voting for block producers. There's so many things that you can get involved in, building projects. We really want to bring more people into the ecosystem and really grow it to thousands or tens of thousands, millions, billions of users. I think it's very exciting.
Yes. So get involved, vote for Infinitybloc on every blockchain, get involved with Telos, all kinds of interesting stuff happening. And that is the Telos podcast for today. Cheers.
Thanks, man.
The money is not the prime asset in life. Time is.